Hey, fun people! Welcome to Everything Asian. If you are new here, welcome. My name is Aja, and I'm here on YouTube and also Facebook today. Also, Facebook, helping teachers and even homeschool parents create a life they love with high achieving children and with a work life balance. So, welcome. If you are new here, I see the greetings. Good morning, good rising. Hello. Today is Saturday, and on Saturdays, we like to talk about hot educational topics. And you guys actually voted all last week, and we'll continue to do that, allowing you guys to give your input and talk about which topics you actually want to come on and talk about. So, for today's Chat It Up Saturday, your topic, the winning topic, is should religion be brought back in school? So I hope you are excited and ready to talk about such a hot, controversial topic. Good morning. Good morning. So glad to see you all's wonderful faces and names down below in the chat box. So, this has been a topic that I feel has come and gone throughout like really the last decade, 2 decades. I mean, you can quite say it's been going on for almost 50 years. But religion and education has been a thing that has been integrated, not integrated, brought into the classroom, not brought into the classroom. So let's talk about it in today's time. So Chat It Up Saturday. Woo woo. We are underway. For those that do not know me, let me just take a moment to introduce myself. My name is Aja. I'm an educational consultant. I have been a kindergarten through fifth grade curriculum specialist, which just means I've been an administrator over all things teaching and learning. So, curriculum is my thing. I have over 10 years worth of experience both teaching and administrating in Title One schools. And I also have my reading endorsement along with so many other certifications. So that's just a little bit about myself. Let me know down below in the chat box a little bit about yourself. What grade do you teach? Or maybe you're a homeschool parent, what grade and where are you from? I love seeing all the wonderful places that you guys are from because everybody's kind of like from all over the world. And so I see the woo woo. Hey. So today we are actually going to chat it up. So I hope you are ready to share your thoughts, come in with all of your wonderful thoughts, opinions. Know that this is a safe place. We are by no means trying to persuade anybody. We just like to talk about hot topics and figure out solutions that we can go and apply in our environment, in our schools, in our area, in our communities. Just trying to shape the world and change the world one problem at a time. So Chat It Up Saturdays are really solution forward, wanting to know your thoughts and also how you can go forward and be a better pillar in your own community. All right, now that our norms are knocked out of the way, let's just take it back and explain and talk about why this is a thing. Why are we talking about religion in education? Well, according to npr.org, and I loved this quote, so I wanted to use this quote. They said that the U.S. Supreme Court banned school sponsored prayer back in public schools back in 1962. So if you think about it, currently we are in 2022. So religion in schools has been banned all the way since 1962. And during that decision, it was stated that the doing school sponsored prayers actually violated the First Amendment, which is freedom of speech. But students, it quotes it in here, it says, but students are allowed to meet and pray on school grounds as long as they do so privately and do not try to force others to do the same thing. So that's what the US Supreme Court's ruling is, and we are still following that even decades and decades later. And so now that we know, kind of what that stated, let's just talk about the decision a little further, and then kind of where we stand today. So, according to the U.S. Supreme Court, there are things that are allowed within the school systems, and so these are some of the things that are stated are allowed. So, children can pray privately. So, if a child wants to actually pray to God by themselves privately, that is allowed. Students can initiate prayer outside of the classroom. So if they want to do it, extracurricular activities, if they want to do it like maybe in the bathroom, if they want to do it on their own outside of the classroom and setting, that is allowed. Create they students have the right to create religious clubs. So after school clubs, if children want to create that club, then they can. They're still expressing freedom of speech. It all goes back to the First Amendment. Children are also allowed to be speakers and speak on religion on their own at assemblies and even activities, as long as it is clearly defined that is not the school doing it, it is the student. So that is what is allowed according to the Supreme Court's decision. But let's talk about what is not allowed. So currently, the government cannot establish religion, meaning that there can't be anything set in place that forces people to do acts of any religion completely. So the government cannot force a child or force a parent or force anybody to pray against their will. Also, teachers and staff cannot organize or enforce students to pray. So you cannot say, all right, class, let's pray and start off our day. So you cannot force or encourage, say, oh, well, go ahead and, I want everybody to join me in prayer. And so you cannot do that. Schools cannot sponsor events that involve prayer. So you cannot have a school sponsored event that involves the act of prayer. And then last but not least, you cannot have prayer at school events. Okay. This is all according to the Supreme Court. So you cannot have prayer at school events. So that's what's allowed and what's not allowed currently right now in the school system. And so now, the topic is, should religion be brought back in school? Should we go back, revisit it, change this a little bit, or is it as good? Do we just leave it alone? So let's just talk about the gap. Right now, the gap is children have to pretty much lead it. It has to be a very student-led event or child-led event when it comes to prayer. It has to be something that the child decides to do, that the child initiates. And so there is a gap between the child-led event and actually talking about it, encouraging children. Like, you cannot encourage, so going to like encouraging children to pray, going to just inviting that space to pray. You can't even have a school-led sponsored event. And so there is a gap. I know. And in a second, you're gonna have a great opportunity to share your thoughts. But I know in my school, what we used to do once a week on Monday mornings, the staff could come early and pray if they wanted to. And so that was the thing. But that was something a teacher went and sponsored, and then our principal went ahead and approved it. And so teachers they gathered early in order to pray, but it was not a school-led event. But then it makes you think, okay, well, according to this, you cannot, it's like you can't invite the kids because it can't be a school sponsored event. If the school says that, join us in prayer, now all of a sudden it is a school sponsored event. So there is a gap there. There is very drastic gap between where we are and where we used to be prior to the Supreme Court's ruling back in 1962, and probably a gap between where we are and where you might want to be. I would love to know your thoughts. All right, so let's talk about what happened in 2020. Back in 2020, President Trump, what look, Trump was the president of the United States, and he actually talked about this Supreme Court ruling in great detail. In fact, he actually was highlighting the actual rights of what is allowed and what's not allowed, and he used his platform to really piggyback and share light on this topic. In fact, we're not going into a political realm or conversation today, but it's important to see the last time that this Supreme Court ruling was in the forefront when it comes to education. And back in 2020, President Trump used his platform to just highlight the actual rights. This was because before that, their students were actually being discriminated against. Students were expressing their rights to pray privately, and were being discriminated against by not only other children but also the school staff. And so they spoke out. They were speaking out against, how they felt, and why they felt that. And this goes against, once again, freedom of speech. And so Trump was almost in like a corner to a place where he had to speak out against this because students were actually facing this. They were facing discrimination. And then also you had schools that were not following guidelines during this time. You had schools that were doing school sponsored prayers. You had schools that were violating what's right and what's not right, or what's right and what's not right, what's allowed and what's not allowed. And so since you had children feeling discriminated against, plus schools not following the rules, President Trump was at a place where he had to highlight, and make very clear distinctions. And that's where it became very clear what is allowed in schools and what's not allowed in schools. And then also in 2020, while he was president, he then told schools they sent out letters to all of the boards of education. So every state, that they would lose federal funding if they did not follow the guidelines set in place by the Supreme Court. So that was stated. And so he did, use his platform to share, highlight, not to change it in any form or fashion, but just to share light, because there did need to be some sort of what's allowed and what's not allowed, because you had so many things occurring. So you said you have the same for teachers at your public school before work. So teachers are allowed to pray together before school. Good. And so then it brings up the question, could we invite, like, because I'm sure that there are children that want to be a part. You got to think about it. Some children, they don't get the exposure at home. School is their safe place. School is the place where they feel the safest. School is the place that they come to. That's the place where they learn. That's the place where they go to. And so if religion's not, in the school, will kids ever be exposed to God? And so then that becomes a question. So let me know, what are your thoughts? And let me know your thoughts. I would love to know where you stand, for those of you guys that want to look, um jump on, and verbally just kind of share your thoughts. You do have that ability, if you in the chat box. But let me know your name, what do you teach, and what are your thoughts? Should we change the Constitution? Should we allow a space for religion to be taught? And if we do, what religions do we teach? Do we teach all of them? And you think about it, just thinking about it, okay, so we're not allowed, the school in and of itself isn't allowed to create a space where people can pray, because now all of a sudden it's a school sponsored event because we said we can't do that, right? But you got to also think about, we're allowed to say the Pledge of Allegiance. God's name is mentioned, the Pledge of Allegiance. That's the first thing children do in the morning. I know even back in like the early 2000s, it was children were allowed to pray. There was like a 2 minute time of prayer. And so right before, right after the Pledge of Allegiance, then you had the moment of silence, and that's what became the moment of silence. Before, I remember growing up, it was called prayer time, or they called it something like, but it was, individual. And then it became a moment of silence because other religions, began to get offended. And so then it became just a moment of silence. And what you did in the moment of silence was up to that child. You said you do teach all religions and social studies. That's a great time to actually teach all the religions. It's really, I know you teach fourth grade, but fifth grade, part of the scope and sequence is learning about the Holocaust. And so when you teach the Holocaust, you have to teach about becoming a Jew, and so you cannot teach the Holocaust without talking about religion. It's impossible. And I think even in social studies, you see religion play a major role. And so it's almost like we can mention it in a historical form, but you can't teach children about it. You get what I'm saying? Like there is a very defined line. um we had a teacher, and during her alone time, she was always playing gospel music. She was playing gospel music when she walked in the school. She played gospel music while the kids were doing independent. And so there was like a conversation about that, and so then she had to go to instrumental gospel music. And then in that case, it's just the instrumental, not the words. But like, what are your thoughts? Do you think we should just form a place? I would love to know your thoughts. I think there can be a little bit of a bending, especially um as somebody that my faith is really big. I feel like there can be a place where I do like that, the fact that what is allowed is very student driven. But what about the children who are curious about religion, that their parents aren't religious, they don't come from a religious background, and they are curious? Well, school is a place where they get to learn about pretty much everything, but they can't learn about religion in school. And so, or a place to even practice it. Like, it's almost interesting. Like, a child can lead the a school event, but an adult can't. And so then it brings a place like, well, why can't adults, even if it's not a school sponsored event, can a teacher not start up a club? Because it's clearly states that children have to be the ones to initiate it. And I think that's because if a teacher leads it, then all of a sudden it is a school sponsored event because the teacher represents that school. And so, you do it automatically. Now, do teachers, that's another good point. Do teachers then not have the right to freedom of speech? Or is it that school just needs to become a safe place for children, a place that religion just isn't brought up? And so it's like almost like a catch 2020. Like, where is the line? Where is the compromise? Can we even close that gap? Do we continue to allow the gap to widen? I know way back when he used to always say where education went wrong is when they took religion out the schools. And it's not that, like, according to, when you really look at what the Supreme Court's ruling was, it's not that religion is taken out of the schools, but it is completely on a student led basis. But students have to lead it, students have to be the ones guiding it. But then it brings up the point, like I kept thinking about, even when you guys voted for this topic, is like, but what about the child that does not have that at home? What about the child who needs it, who wants it, who craves it, and they don't have that environment in their home environment? Their parents don't go to church. Their parents don't have any religious background. They want to know about God, and school is their safe place. Well, now school can't be the ones to offer them that. And so then what about that child? And so now here we are at Catch 2020. Where is a place that we can draw that gap? And I also want to let you guys just goodness. I want to know your thoughts. Do you feel restricted as a teacher on the topic of religion? Like as you're going, Keisha said, we teach religion, and like teach different religions within social studies. Do you feel restricted? I know I have personally had children that have asked to pray. Like I said, I've taught fifth grade, and in the fifth grade it's kind of brought up a lot. I remember I had one child and he lost his mom, and it was really hard on him, very hard on him, and he was bringing up religion a lot, and because he brought it up, I allowed my children to talk, because it was a student led discussion. um we were also simultaneously studying the Holocaust during that time. It was just crazy. It all happened at the same time towards the end of the year, like March. But do you feel restricted? I know I felt restricted because I wanted to tap into the conversation. I wanted to talk about the conversation, and not press my views on children, but just like how we're able to have an open conversation here on YouTube, I can't have that open conversation with my children. And a lot of times, we I get it that teachers are the ones that shape children, but a lot of times, like, we want freedom of speech too. So I want to know, do y'all feel restricted? You said religion and Black history is taboo, and it's like it doesn't exist. Oh, I love that. Absolutely. It's like we can't talk about it or something bad is going to happen. Dun dun dun. It is. I feel like it is taboo. But it's a real thing. Like, especially going back, the last time that this was brought up, right? The last time that this was a big deal was during 2020. You had the death of George Floyd, and now now racism is brought up heavy in the schools, and you can't talk about it. Religion became really big in 2020, as we see, when President Trump was the president during that phase, and now his it became so bad that the federal level had to then come in and step in with schools. And so back in 2020, not only was the world shut down, but you had religion becoming an issue, and you're right, you had like the rights of colored people. I say it like that. Of just all ethnicities now speaking up in the educational forefront. And so those are like topics that are taboo, but those are topics that our children are facing every single day. The fact that so many children were, coming out talking about that they felt discriminated against, and it got to a federal level, shows you how drastic this was. Um, he said, "Hey, hey, 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 my sister's keeper." I love that. He said, "Bringing religion back into the schools would look different everywhere." Absolutely, since we don't all have the same beliefs. Very true. And so then, like, that's where I'm going. Like, so should we? Because you're right. If we bring it back, it has to be a place where all children feel comfortable, and all children feel, just like they are now, that they can come and their voice is heard. But right now, it's like children have the freedom of speech, but staff don't. And so I would love to, like, what do you guys think as far as how would that look? Would it look like in a certain space that the teachers the teacher can actually state, I am speaking, just like children can speak from themselves, not the school. Teachers can then state that I am speaking for myself, not the school. Would then that be okay? Because the way that it is written, only children can initiate those type of conversations and things. It is not the staff. It is not the staff. And so it's almost like teachers don't have the freedom of speech in that realm. Now, I'm just asking. I'm just going based on the facts and asking your opinion. Or do we feel as educators that the way it is, educators and parents, that the way it is the way it should be? Do you guys feel that the way it is should be, shouldn't be touched? It should stay the way it is. If it's not working, don't fix it. But as we see, even in 2020, that was only 2 years ago, it wasn't working. Children were feeling discriminated against. You still had schools doing things. I know my mom was talking about, when she saw that this was going to be a topic, she was like, oh, that is such a good topic. Because she was like, that actually just came about in CNN recently, because there was a coach who made all of his players pray before a game. And there are two players that were not of the same belief or the same religion. They did not have the same, beliefs. And so they went out and felt like their freedom of speech was their, First Amendment. They did not have that right because they did not want to pray. And it became a big deal. And so then it's like, okay, well, at what point? Because I know for a fact I was in theater back in high school, and we prayed before every single performance. But now that I look back as an adult, I was like, it was us praying. It was it was us praying. It wasn't our director leading it. But he allowed that space for all of us to pray. You said perhaps continue the moment of silence. I love the moment of, I feel like the moment of silence is great, but now all schools aren't doing it. Like the moment of silence gave, all religions that freedom to do what they needed. If you wanted to use your moment of silence to read a book, then go do that. And students, okay, so I agree. I felt like the moment of silence was a powerful way of allowing prayer without stating it was prayer. But like I said, a lot of kids didn't even know that that was prayer time because it wasn't stated. You said, and students are free to pray to their God, but religion classes can be an elective and taught as world religion. I like that, but going back to what you just stated, um, how would the class be? Would it be like, Keisha said you can kind of do it in a social studies facet? Because in college it's taught. I know I took the class in college, and we studied all kinds of religions. I even had a course becoming a teacher, which was diversity in schools. And a part of that was studying different religions, because you're going to have children that come with different beliefs, different religions, different principles, so forth. And so we're teaching in college. Can I like it as an elective? I like how you said as an elective. Could it be an elective even in elementary school? Because most of us teach, elementary children. Could it be an elective there, or is at that age is it a school sponsored event? You know what I mean? Like, and I don't know. It kind of it's kind of like I feel like looking at it, I'm like, if a teacher were to lead an elective, is that a school sponsored event? You know what I mean? Because as it states, children can lead it, but teachers can't. So it's like, are we taking a right the freedom of speech of teachers? Or is it that teachers, you just need to do that when you're not on the clock? But if it's an elective, you're not on the clock. That's after school. So catch 2020 right there. Here we go back to the beginning. You say, although you'd be comfortable sharing about God, okay, you're not sure you'd be comfortable teaching something you don't believe in. Okay. I'd be more inclined to teach guiding principles. Okay. That's a great, I love it. I love the honesty, the transparency, because you're right. Even in that, you'll be teaching what you believe, but you're also teaching things that you don't believe in. And so then it does have to become more of um, a facts-based type of instruction. This is what this believes in, or this religion believes in. I've actually had children ask me what I believed in when we studied. Like I stated, the Holocaust brings up religion. You cannot teach the Holocaust without talking about religion. It's impossible, because that was the entire reason of the Holocaust, was because of religion. And so, and Jews. And so when, my children, especially fifth graders at that point, they're very curious, they're very inclined to ask questions. And my children would ask, like, they were killing people like because of their beliefs. And then you saw, how people had to like hide the Star of David. And, they started, hiding that stuff. And we had to teach that. It's in the curriculum to teach um, about the Holocaust. And so children would ask. And I always, like the same way I'm with you guys, I would be like that in my classroom. I always allowed my children to be able to talk, to have a place where they felt safe to take risks, safe to talk. And then guess what? It also encouraged them to read. You guys know me. And so we read things like the Diary of Anne Frank. And so we read the Diary of Anne Frank, and as we're reading the Diary of Anne Frank, as we're studying, other texts about the Holocaust, and children are reading with other children around their age wrote, then they become even more curious to read. And so as they're reading, they're wanting to talk. And so it really became like little whole class literature circles. And so when you have those literature circles on topics such as the Holocaust, that is also in, the curriculum, it opened up that space. And so children are curious. And so I like the transparency in that. It just made me think about, my own experience both as a teacher. I do want to mention this, and I also see why there is such a line. So random story time. I remember back when I was in high school, and I was at actually a predominantly white high school. And in this instant, we were in my homeroom class, but I also took this class for theater. So right now we are actually in the middle of a performing arts class. And we were talking about religion, and my teacher also was sharing his beliefs. And I never forget my heart, my spirit. I had never been around atheists before. And in this moment I was around, sorry, atheists, and they were all sharing their beliefs, and it was nothing against them, but I had just not experienced it. And here I was in school in class, and I never forget, my heart was just like boom, 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 boom. And everybody was talking about their beliefs, and my teacher was talking about his beliefs. And I was like, what? You don't believe in God? And I was around a lot of people that did not believe what I believed in. And they were all just like talking about, and it was just really disturbing my spirit. And I remember running to the bathroom, and I was just crying because it was just so heavy on me. And I remember, because at that time, I had a cell phone. I had just gotten a cell phone too. I ran and I called my mom, and I just cried from the bathroom stall. And it was because religion was brought up. And then seeing what my teacher believed in. And so I get why it's not, because like you stated, all children, like you stated right here, that all children aren't coming with the same beliefs. I know when I was in high school, I wasn't coming with the same beliefs of other children that were around me. And bringing that up, especially in the middle of class, although we weren't forced to pray or anything, but even hearing my teacher share his beliefs, somebody I looked up to, it really did, it blindsided me. And so as educators, being now in the other chair, we don't want our children to feel like that. I would never want a child to feel how I felt in that bathroom. Mm. I would never want a child to feel how I felt in that bathroom. I felt unheard. I had never had that feeling before. And I don't like. that makes me see why religion shouldn't be brought up. Have you ever heard that there's a few things you just don't bring up? Religion and politics. That in a group of circle of people, those are just two things that you shouldn't bring up: religion and politics, because it does, it gets really, really deep. And when you start talking about what people believe, those are things that people are very passionate about. And it's like, if you are going to bring that up, almost going to, what Bonnie was saying, bring it up as an elective, meaning that children are opting in to that type of environment where they're opting in to have those type of discussions. Now, according to, scope and sequence, and, like we were talking about with the curriculum, studying something like the Holocaust, it's almost impossible not to talk about religion. Also, studying slavery, as you're reading slavery books, and books about Harriet Tubman, they're all talk about how they were praying to God. That's bringing it up in literature. And so it's in the books that children read that align with with the curriculum, that align with Common Core standards. And so it is kind of there, like it's that thing that it's just kind of in the back of your head that you're not even really acknowledging, but it's just like right here, like, ooh. And so I thought, like, when y'all voted on it, I'm like, yeah, that is a great topic to discuss. um as we are really, in this new phase of education. We're in a phase where social media has really come and it has taken the world by a storm. Like, children have instant access to everything. And so it's like, okay, well, are we, as their guiding factor, um do we have a place to talk about religion? And then going back to like how that made me feel as being the student in the bathroom, it's like, should it really be brought back up, or like, should we keep it separated? But as you think about like some of the things that we do in the school, like the Pledge of Allegiance says God, the dollar bill, God. Like, literally, if you look at the dollar bill, it says in God we trust somewhere. There we go. On the back of it. So just studying money. Look, don't ask me why I had a dollar right here, but in God we trust is right there on the dollar bill. So like it's around children. It's constantly around, and so ignoring it or not creating a space where children can talk or even learn about God does kind of separate it. And then maybe catch 2020. Well, that is why you have Muslim schools. That's why you have Christian schools. And if you want your child to be exposed to that, then you need to send them to those schools. But notice those schools cost. So now, what about parents? Like, most of us teach at Title I schools. What about the parents that don't have access to those type of funds to send their children to a Christian school or send their children to a Muslim school so their children don't get exposed? I'm just being, open, safe platform. Bring it up every angle we could talk about. You said you agree guided principles in elementary and maybe world religion in high school, supported by school counselors. I like, because school counselors, they deal with diversity. They're certified in a different manner that teachers are not. So I do like involving maybe school counselors in on the guided discussion. But I like how you said that maybe that's something that needs to be discussed in high school. As children get a little older, then that can become a thing. But maybe guiding principles while they're in elementary school. Okay. You said, should a child wants to make a religious choice with their parents' permission, counselors, maybe a list of pastoral care. I like that. Our school, and we had to stop that. We used to have an after school club that the church sponsored, but it wasn't the school that did it. And then eventually we had the county made us stop. stop that. And my principal was like, it's not us doing it. It was the church doing it. And the really dope thing, because it was after school club, so kids got to volunteer if they wanted it, and the school, I mean the church was able to talk about God, and you had a pastor. But not only did they do that, they did a lot of community service within that club, and it was, a club. But the county did even stop that. They were like, all right, you're playing, you're getting a little close to the line, you're getting a little close to the line. And so my principal even, had to stop that, even though she was like, "It's not the school. We're just providing the spaces after school. It's not any of our, like, our staff leading it. You had staff involved, but it wasn't us leading it." And then they raised the point that even then you have a kid that, because they're in Miss Budget's class, that because she's in this club, then I want to go do it because of her. And so you do have the influence of a teacher. And so, but it's just like, well, man, like, what about the kids that don't have access? But they only have access to school because of the school bus, and that's their only form of transportation. Like they don't really have access to the outside world. So going back to body, now they have to wait all the way until they're in high school to even hear the word God. And so, or even just to get exposed to different religions. So it's just a place, and we never want any child to feel discriminated against. I mean, I know I can talk for myself. I do not want any child to feel discriminated against, and I certainly hope that you don't as well. So, but it's still a thing. Like I stated, in 2022, 2020, it got so bad that children, it went to a federal level, that children were being discriminated against when it came to praying. That kids that did express their freedom to pray, they were being looked down on if they were a different religion. Well, like, where does love come in? And so, like, I see why it's such a big, a big topic. And even on here, like I started off, I'm like, this is a safe place. We all on here, don't we may not have the same, same beliefs and same backgrounds, and that's the beauty of the world, that everybody is so different. Everybody does have comes with different experiences, different backgrounds, different thoughts, different opinions, different solutions, even. And so it just gives you something to think about. But overall, as far as me, I feel like the separation of church and state. I feel like there could be a place that can be a safe place, that could be a bridge between the two, that could be that light to that in that dark place. Because children nowadays, y'all, man, I feel like children, even at an elementary level, they experience things that I know as an adult I did not experience until I was older. Like, they experiencing bullying on a whole nother level, at such a young age. The social media things that are so in the forefront, being discriminated against because of their color. They experience just everything at such an earlier age. Death. They see things at the drop of a dime, things that we used to be sheltered from, or things that we try to shelter them from. But I mean, instant access. I know my daughter, she's 4. She understands. Just yesterday, the things she was talking about, and she was actually talking about Jesus, but she was also talking about somebody getting shot and having blood everywhere. And I was like, baby, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? He said, hey, sis, facts. Hey, we haven't seen you in a minute. Welcome, welcome. I'm so glad you're able to be on here live today. I know it's been a minute. So welcome back, girl. Welcome back. But yeah, like my daughter at 4, I was like in culture shock at the conversation we were talking about yesterday. I'm like, and my mom was like, she was in the car. My mom was literally like, this is not um age appropriate. She was like, this is not age appropriate. I'm like, but this is what's on her mind. Literally, this is what's on her mind. And for some unknown reason, she thought about somebody getting shot and going to heaven, bleeding, and Jesus. And like, this was what's on their minds at 4. Think about what we were thinking about at the age of 4. I'm sorry, it's probably not people getting shot. Like, I'm like, baby, you've never seen a gun in your life. Like, where are you getting this from? But unfortunately, kids have access to YouTube. They have access to all of these things. And the things that they face at such an early age, it's totally different. And so, just having that place where they can go to, even in at an early elementary level, can be very peaceful for them. And so there, I feel like there can be a place for a light of darkness. And it's like, man, it's like every time you start, even like I said with my school, even the church just creating that after school club, now kids don't have access to that. Like, at, at what place, like, can we create a place where there can be a little light, not forcing children to do it? I totally am not, I'm totally not for forcing children to do anything. Like, don't even force me to do something as an adult. If I don't want to do that, don't, freedom of speech. But not allowing, like, a school, even a school sponsored event is still optional. And so you can have a time, I feel like you can have a place where people can come, and maybe, once a month. And this is just me thinking, like, of what that happy medium would be in the school system. But maybe schools be allowed to create a place where prayer is allowed, a school sponsored event that people can opt into, that does have different religions. And maybe like once a month, maybe before or after school, outside of the ground, maybe you do have like a place where Muslims gather, a place where Christians gather, a place where, and you have different religions. And if you're a different religion, you start your own, and that just be a time where all the religions kind of come together and join. And maybe that's that light in the midst of darkness. Let me get in the chat box. He said the sad thing is they get this from the internet or at home. You said yes. Yes, yes. And our children, they're coming in with that. Like with my daughter, I'm like, guns, what? And that's when my husband was like, YouTube, get the girl off of YouTube. But then I think about the things we watch. I watch Chicago PD, Chicago Fire, and Chicago Med every single day. That's my show. And so now I have to like watch when she's around, like what she's being exposed to. I think this will be a great topic. Look, another chatted up Saturday. You say you try not to be ignorant, but these babies are exposed to it. And it puts the teacher in uncomfortable conditions. Yes, yes. Like going back to what I was saying, that when I was teaching the Holocaust, my children were asking me, like, they come asking you questions. And you're right, it does put you as a teacher in an uncomfortable condition, because how you answer it, you can lose your job. Your entire livelihood can be taken away from you at the drop of a sentence. You know what I mean? Like, if you say one thing, that child runs, and now all of a sudden you've lost your income for your family. But you're right, because they're exposed to it, they come asking questions. So you said you're speaking on gay rights. That's another thing that children see. I mean, come on now. The same way with religion, and they kind of go hand in hand. Because it's almost impossible to talk about homosexuality without talking about religion. But children are exposed to it at a very early age. And now, I mean, you can't turn on the TV without seeing it. You said you see a lot of kids acting out sexually. And girl, and it's sad, because that's what kids are coming into the classroom with. But they're coming into the classroom, so like the environment of the classroom is changing. And that's the thing, that the lawmakers, what we're allowed to teach, what we're allowed to say, the parameters of the classroom have not changed, but the classroom in and of itself, because of times, have changed. Society has changed. um You said you have to teach them to say no, don't touch my body. Like it's crazy. I know. What do you teach again? Let me know that down below in the chat box. What do you teach again? I know I taught fifth grade, y'all know, and I used to see, I mean, everything. We're all my upper elementary. It don't have to be upper elementary. I remember back when I was teaching kindergarten, and y'all I did not kindergarten is a whole nother thing. I love pre-K way more than kindergarten. But I remember I taught kindergarten. We had a child who was sexually active, and I was like, in kindergarten, what is going on? And but kids are exposed at a very early age. We've had, as an administrator, we saw some of everything, second grade, third grade, and I just thought it was upper grades when I taught upper grades, because I remember seeing some things in the bathroom when the teacher actually brought it, and we had a whole fifth grade meeting that's not what y'all come to school for, because you got to think about it, at fifth grade there were kids that were sexually active, and now they're bringing it into the school, and it does, like you said, it puts the teacher in very uncomfortable conditions, and so I think overall, like, I know I'm not in a state that has, what are they called, oh goodness, unions, there we go, but then it's like, is there, I feel like teacher unions need to be more in place, because teachers are dealing with things that were not brought up in the classroom 30, 40 years ago, back when, the Constitution, the U.S. Supreme Court changed the Constitution and banned it back in, freedom of speech with religion, back in 1962. The classroom was not the same as it is today whatsoever. The what kids are bringing into the environment has drastically changed. That's just facts. Like you stated, kids are now bringing different issues. They're bringing, homosexuality into the classrooms. They're bringing questions because they watched it on the internet. They were talking about it in the bathroom, and now they're coming to the classroom asking about what they were just talking about in the bathroom. They're learning about it, at recess, and now here they are coming to you. You got parents coming to you talking about what was this conversation. You're like, I don't even know what you're talking about, because kids are naturally talking about it on their own. So you teach first grade, all right. He said the sad thing is the parents have no clue. Come on, I didn't even see that. I just used the parents example. Absolutely, because it's the times, and I would love that. We would do another vote. So the way we even chose this conversation, if you did not see, I put a vote for us to vote on the next hot topic. So we had like 2 weeks to vote. And so we'll do that again. So go ahead and vote, and we can vote. And if y'all want to dig deeper into this conversation for another Chat It Up Saturday, I would love it. So many thoughts on that. You said you have seen the behavior that little kids mimic. They do. They mimic behavior. I mean, that's since the beginning of time. So that's what you're talking about. Yes. Like, think about, kids are sponges. They're sponges, and so they're mimicking everything they see around them. I know my daughter, y'all. She said that her uncle is her husband. She's like, yeah, that's my boyfriend and my husband. And I'm like, okay, well, at least you said your uncle, not nothing crazy. But like, I'm like, where are you getting this from? And I remember 2 years ago, she asked him to be her Valentine. And I was like, your Valentine. And she was like, yeah, I want him to be my Valentine, because some little girls at school, they were finding guys, and she was like, I just wanted my uncle. Um, and so, she did that. You said schools are required to remain neutral, right? The middle of the road, to protect the rights of the individual. The problem is that kids don't have the middle of the road issues. Woo! I have to start that one. Let me say that one again. Schools are required to remain neutral, or the middle of the road. I like that. We just all a safe place, right? A safe place, a safe environment. But kids are not coming to us with middle of the road issues. Girl, I love it. Absolutely. Like what we're saying, like Absolutely. What kids are dealing with is not like they can't come like the things that they're facing at 4, 5, and 6 are things we faced at 20. That's just the nature of where education has gone, where children have gone, where technology really has brought us to. And so it's like, what can we do in education to meet children where they are now? Because they need something where they are now. You always hear like older people saying, the lost generation, that as time's getting on, they're losing things. And we have to, if we're going to be in the middle of the road, then we have to, like before we were dealing with middle of the road issues, but now we're not. So what can be set in place to deal with where children are now? You said yes, pre-Ks are bumping bodies without gender specifics. Oh goodness, the pre-K babies. You said that is a danger of teachers not being able to go to restrooms. Yeah. You can't control what they do in the bathroom. Like I said, they're going to the bathroom, they're talking about things. I know, just like Fearless Metals was talking about, we had children doing that too. So like I feel like that kids use the restroom as a place of exploration. And so it almost makes me think, when I know we started this with, the religious talk, it almost makes me think, should teachers' rights be reevaluated? Like the rights of a teacher, like, do our rights need to be reevaluated to fit the needs of where our children are now? Do we need to have one? Like, we can't have one child go in the bathroom at one time. We'll be wasting too much instructional time. So do teachers now have the rights to go into restrooms? Like, where does that fall? And then, is that taking away children's rights? And then, like, it's just, oh my goodness, what kids deal with, what we deal with now in the educational setting is so different. It's so different than when we went to school. It's so different than schools 10 years ago. And I feel like the progression is happening quicker and quicker and quicker. So definitely, I look forward to talking about this further within the community tab. Please share your vote for what you want for our next hot topic coming up next week. We are actually going to be talking about, what would you do if you received $50,000 for your school, both either your school as a teacher or your school as a parent? What would you do with the money? In fact, you'll see the picture, that is Mr. Beast. Let me know, have you guys ever heard of Mr. Beast? He is one of the biggest YouTubers here on YouTube. In fact, he started off as a gaming channel, and he literally is one of the richest YouTubers at this point. And he actually did just that. He was going around giving money to schools, and it was so crazy because, think about it, if somebody just came and gave you money, what would you do? What would you buy for your children? What do you think that children really need in this time? So that would be our hot topic next Saturday. But definitely vote so we can choose the topic for the next upcoming Saturday, because I would love to jump more into this, more into the rights, more into talking about what schools are facing even in today's time. You say you feel uncomfortable talking to parents about this. Because parents just get upset if you tell them. Yeah, even if you say things like factual, your child was doing XYZ, then they take it. But maybe you have children tell them. That's another way of problem solving. You have the child say, like, this is what I was doing, that I got in trouble for. I don't know. It's a very tricky topic. So I would love to talk about more. Like I said, there will be a vote, so y'all can vote on what you guys want to talk about for the next Saturday. You said schools are not allowed to save the world because our hands are tied. Hello. Even though everyone expects us to do so, we are held responsible for everything. Absolutely. And you're right. It used to be a place where where schools were. supposed to save the world. Schools were that safe place. Schools were the place where kids could go to. Schools were, I mean, like, schools were everything. I mean, everything. No, that was your safe place. That was your place of feeling love. The teacher, a lot of times, think about it, kids see their teacher more than they see their parents, you know. And so the school was that safe place. And so now that the school has to, there's such a line drawn between school and what's really going on in the world that kids face. There's a big line drawn. And so and now, like you said, teachers are held responsible for everything. You can't even post stuff on the internet because you may get fired from it. Like, if you're caught drinking even on the weekend, and one of your kids see it and they send it to the school board, oh, now your job is fired, depending on where you live. But it's a very thin line. And so now you have teachers walking on eggshells, and so many teachers are leaving. They're leaving because of this. And you also have the teacher shortage. The teacher shortage that we're facing is already so extreme, but yet we keep putting all of these parameters on educators. You said, choose good advice, and schools are richer than we think. And you said that is why they took religion out of schools. I like that. Like that, even as a closing statement, you're like, taking, school advice with schools being that place. It was so powerful. And that is why they took it out of schools. I love it. I love it. Because you're right. You're right. It was, schools were having such a powerful impact on religion. Just the teaching of religion, the practicing of prayer within schools, and that was touching so many lives. And so they did take it away. And you're right. You're right. Because you got to think about why kids, especially kids that are in underprivileged areas, that's all they have is school. Like, school becomes that place. You said reevaluate teacher roles. Ooh, that would be a good topic. Should we reevaluate teacher roles? I'm ready. I love it. But you're right. We almost have to reevaluate teacher roles. Um, like you said, we are held responsible, for everything. Can we just find a middle ground? Like, where does teachers do that? Like, do we get freedom of speech at all? Like, because the heart of a teacher is that to say, to be there for your children. Like, you don't go into education for the money at all. Let's be clear. You go in there because of the children, because of the connection, because of the livelihood that you can give someone else, the future that you are helping shape. But you feel so limited. You feel so restricted because you're not able to talk about the things that your children actually need. In some places they need God. In some places they need to hear you just say that encouraging word, whether they believe it or not. Can we just mention it just for 2 seconds? You can't. And so, you're right. It's very overwhelming, very overwhelming. And it's almost like you are walking on eggshells, tippy toeing, when it comes to really catering to what children need. Sometimes, a child may ask, can you just pray for me? My mom died. Can you pray for me? Now what? You have to say, I remember, that's what happened to me. Look, that's what happened to me when, my child, when his mother passed, he wanted prayer. And I couldn't pray for him. Like, I felt so restricted, saying, no, but baby, you can pray. You can pray. But it's sad because they ask for you to pray, but if you pray, now your whole livelihood is gone. And so it's hard. It's hard to find that place in today's time, because our children need this, but we can only give them this. And so then there's this big gap. There's this big gap. So I love that. I love, let's definitely channel that. I thank all of you guys for your open and honest and transparency. on today. We had open and honest conversation. You guys were speaking your thoughts, and I love it. I thank you guys for tuning in live. And if you're watching the replay, definitely feel free. Let us know your thoughts, your comments. What is the middle ground when it comes to religion within the school settings, especially in the elementary school settings? Should we keep it as is, or should we do something where there is a light or a safe place within the classroom? So let us know your thoughts, and also check out the community tab, because it's in that community tab that you are able to vote on hot educational topics just like this. Next week, we will be in our heads just a little bit. What would you do if you received $50,000 for your school? What would you buy? What do you think is necessary if somebody just came and gave you money? I cannot wait to talk about that next Saturday. We are live each and every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And don't forget, on last Saturday, we changed up the uploading schedule. So our recorded videos are now dropping every Sunday at 8 a.m. So tomorrow morning, check it out. I'm giving you 10 phonics games and activities to play with your children. Whoop, whoop. So you'll receive that tomorrow morning. So make sure you check out that video. And then I'm also helping you guys out with a lot of little simple tricks and advice, and teaching advice and teaching tips. So each and every day, you'll at least receive two of those, Monday through Friday, to get you through the week. But have a wonderful week. You said sometimes Rose can, come on now. That girl, you you ready for the next Chat It Up Saturday, huh? I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. You said thank you. You're welcome. You're welcome. Hey, hey, hey. And so I will see you guys next Saturday, and I'll see you tomorrow as I give you 10 really fun phonics games that you can play with your children. See you later.